Caleb Williams has generated a ton of buzz for all Bears fans. That's just something we're going to see the entire offseason. There'll be overreactions to basically everything that comes out of Bears camp, training camp, mini camp, whatever it might be, where there was the fake story, or we believe it was a fake story of the 7 interceptions. Then we heard about him struggling against the Bears defense. On some days, he's amazing where he has these angles that he could throw the ball. It's still at such a high velocity when he's jumping and spinning. So I was listening to some Bears podcasts recently, and there are some pretty good Bears podcasts out there if you go and take a listen to them. And they were just talking about this, like, what do we want from Caleb? What do we want to see differently over the next few months? That was one of the mailbag questions they got. And I thought the answer was, honestly, it was a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I thought it was accurate when he said, I just want things to look different. I don't want to be in the middle of training camp and have Caleb Williams still struggling. I don't compared to years past, where Justin Fields, it was never wow moments really with Justin Fields. There were a few, but not the same way that Caleb Williams can deliver. So Bears fans, they just want to see, in the middle of July, it shouldn't be Bears dominate Williams again. I think that's one thing that jumps off for Bears fans is, okay, let's just see progress throughout the season. And then when we get to the actual season itself, if I had to pick between making the playoffs or being above 500, which is, I would say, are the two categories you can select as success for the Bears. I would say, so they were 7-10 last year. I would say for the Bears to have a successful season, they need to win 9 games. So yes, earn a record above 500.
I would even say just an improvement from last year.
You just show progress.
Even if it's by a game, even if it's 8-9, 9-8, hover around that 500 mark. I mean, it's tough to say make the playoffs is successful when they're clearly they're the 3rd best team in the division. And the clear cut. The Lions and Packers are better than they are. The Bears are the 3rd best team in their own division. And I can see a whole handful of teams, obviously the cream of the crops, like the Niners, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Lions, they're better than the Bears too. So playoffs to me is out. If you hover around with a rookie quarterback who's hasn't played a snap yet, he just shows what he can, some flashes of what he can potentially do. Flashes of greatness, improvement as the season goes on. And they can finish 8-9, 9-8, maybe right on the outside looking in. Mm-hmm. That's a successful season for the Bears. I mean, look, like I said before, there's been so many quarterbacks who are great in college, who are hyped up, who we think are going to be superstars, who aren't. I think Caleb Williams has to show some good things, show some promise. The Bears can flutter around the playoff spot, week 17, week 18. But at least 8 wins for me is a success.
Okay, so for you, it is just show progress.
It's just show improvement from last year.
I think that's probably the right approach to have to
making the playoffs for the Bears. That would be asking for some gravy.
Doesn't it seem like a lot of people though are starting to have that approach to Chicago? That when you look at along the NFC, you have the 2 in the NFC North, right? Then you have your Niners, you have your Eagles and Cowboys, and you have the Falcons or Bucks, probably the Falcons in the NFC South. So Bears fans are sitting there saying, man, this roster's really good. That 7th spot is just sitting there wide open. It's like, okay, we're going to have to go against Baker Mayfield and Tampa, who we like on this podcast, but generally speaking, not a world beater. Or it's the Rams, and you never know about Matthew Stafford. And outside of that, I don't think there are many teams in the NFC that you can realistically say are good enough to get that 7 seed unless a lot of things go right. So I understand why Bears fans are starting to look at that 7th seed and saying, oh, that could and maybe should be ours if everything goes the way we're hoping. But in terms of expectations, I agree with you. I think that's asking for the cherry on top. You just want to be in a position where heading into next season, you're ready to take another leap.
Yeah, there's a difference in expectations and then like hitting your ceiling and expectations, and then a reality, like a hope. I think you can hope, like some teams can't.
Oh yes,
but
yes.
You can hope to get into the playoffs as a 6 or 7 seed and maybe win a game, whereas other teams can't. But I think what you should expect is around that 8-win mark.
I agree.
And be one of the first teams on the outside looking in.
I told you this right before we started. I think maybe the biggest or most underrated topic in the NFC North this entire offseason so far is the Chicago Bears defense and their ability to take a step into being potentially a top 5 unit in the NFL. Keenan Allen finally had his first practice with them, or first practices, and he said they look like a top 5 defense. They sound like one too. You hear them whooping and hollering after every play. So he said it's actually pretty annoying. But the Bears, for all the struggles they had earlier in the season, once Montez Sweat came, they really turned it on and became one of the more ferocious units. Number one in rushing defense on the season. And if you look up and down their roster, they got linebackers. They have the feared pass rusher. They have the number one corner. I think that this defense is being slept on. And if everything comes together, that playoff spot should certainly be in play for Chicago. But expectations, I'm going to go with getting to over 500. You'll go with show progress.